The luxury sedan glided through the bustling streets, its tinted windows hiding the man inside from curious onlookers. Jonathan Hale, a billionaire CEO known for his ruthless business deals and flawless public image, was finally enjoying a rare, peaceful afternoon drive. But that peace shattered in an instant. A small, trembling hand reached from the back seat and pressed firmly over his mouth. Jonathan's piercing blue eyes darted to the rearview mirror, meeting the gaze of a young girl he had never seen before. Her eyes, wide and urgent, locked onto his, and then she whispered, barely audible but filled with fear, "Don't say a word." Jonathan was no stranger to surprises, mergers, acquisitions, media storms, but nothing could have prepared him for this. The girl, no older than 8 or 9, sat in the back seat of his own car, dressed neatly but with scuffed shoes. Her braids framed a face that carried both innocence and something darker. Worry, maybe even terror. She slowly removed her hand, her gaze still fixed on his. Jonathan turned his head slightly. "Who are you? How did you get—" "Please," she cut him off, her voice trembling. "Don't talk. They might hear you." Confusion knotted his brow. They? Who was they? His driver, Martin, kept his eyes on the road, expression unreadable. Jonathan noticed the faint tightening of Martin's jaw, his knuckles pale against the steering wheel. The CEO's instincts kicked in. Years of reading people told him this was no prank. This girl was in real trouble. Jonathan leaned back, watching her through the mirror. "If you're in danger," her small hands clenched into fists. "I'll explain when we're safe." Outside, the city blurred past. Inside, the air thickened with tension. Jonathan didn't know it yet, but every choice he made from this moment forward would decide whether this child lived or vanished without a trace. Jonathan's mind raced. His schedule for the day had been airtight: board meeting, press interview, dinner with investors. No stops, no detours. So how had this girl ended up here? He tapped the center console screen, pulling up the GPS. The route was wrong. They weren't heading toward his penthouse. "Martin," Jonathan said, his voice calm but edged with steel. "Where are we going?" The driver didn't answer. The girl's eyes widened. "Don't make him mad," she whispered. Jonathan felt a surge of anger. This was his car, his driver, his life. And yet, in that moment, he realized he wasn't in control. The streets grew narrower, the sunlight dimmer as they moved away from the city center. Jonathan glanced outside. Warehouse district. He tried to unlock his phone. No signal. The girl spoke again, faster this time, words tumbling out. "They took me from my aunt's house, said they'd bring me back if she paid, but she doesn't have money. They told me to stay quiet or else—" Her voice cracked. Jonathan's chest tightened. He'd read about such stories in the news, never imagined one would unfold right in front of him. "Why me?" he asked quietly. "They think you'll pay. They said you're rich, and you care about looking good on TV." Jonathan swallowed hard. She was right. His image was everything. But this wasn't about publicity. This was about a terrified little girl who had trusted him in an impossible moment. He leaned forward slightly. "What's your name?" "Maya." "Maya, I promise." Before he could finish, the car slowed. A black van waited ahead. 2 men stood by it, their faces shadowed by caps. Martin stopped the sedan. The men started walking toward them. Jonathan's heartbeat pounded in his ears. He turned to Maya. "When I say run, you run to the cafe on the corner. Don't look back. But trust me." One man reached for the rear door handle. Jonathan moved fast, shoving his door open, slamming it into the man's side and pulling Maya into his arms. "Run!" They bolted toward the cafe, shouts erupting behind them. Jonathan burst through the cafe door, Maya clinging to him. "Call the police!" he shouted. The barista froze for a split second, then grabbed the phone. Outside, the 2 men stood at the curb, watching but not approaching. Jonathan knew why. They didn't want witnesses. Maya trembled in his arms. "They'll come back." "Not if I can help it," he said firmly. Within minutes, sirens wailed in the distance. The men disappeared into the alley, the black van peeling away. Police stormed in, questioning Jonathan and taking Maya's statement. She recounted everything, how they'd grabbed her, how Martin had been paid to drive her to the meeting point. Jonathan sat silently, rage boiling inside him. Martin had been with him for 6 years, and yet, for the right price, he'd turned his car into a trap. The officers took Maya into protective custody, promising to reunite her with her aunt. Jonathan insisted on riding with them to ensure her safety. As the patrol car pulled away, Maya reached for his hand. "Thank you for listening." Jonathan met her gaze. "Always." The following week, Jonathan testified in court against Martin and the men who had taken Maya. The evidence was clear: text messages, payment transfers, GPS logs. Maya's aunt wept when the verdict came, guilty on all counts. Maya was safe, the men were behind bars. For Jonathan, the experience left a mark deeper than any business deal. He'd built his life around power, control, and wealth, but in that car, none of it had mattered. What mattered was a child's courage to reach out, to risk everything by placing her hand over his mouth and asking for silence. Jonathan set up a foundation in Maya's name to support children affected by kidnapping and trafficking. And whenever he stepped into his car, he remembered that moment when the most important thing he could do was simply listen.